Welcome back everyone, RacerX here, and today is actually a continuation video based on the video that I put out yesterday where I talked about how I'm not overly optimistic about how EVs are selling in the United States. Consumers have kind of spoken. There's just not all that much demand, at least here in the US, for the EVs. I listed Mach-E obviously as an example. That thing is just not selling, and overwhelmingly people have mentioned that they are not really all that interested in an EV powered muscle car, and that is what Stellantis is moving forward with. As a matter of fact, $18 billion is what they plan to invest in like EV plants, battery building plants, all that kind of stuff over the next like 4 or 5 years. And these are for cars that American consumers don't necessarily want, and it's leading us down a really weird road. And just today, more news came down. I just read a couple of articles. Apparently Stellantis just hired somebody new from a different company. And once again, it leaves me just a little bit uncertain about where the company is headed. So today we'll talk about it. If you guys are brand new to the channel, please do me a big gigantic favor. Don't forget to hit subscribe. The button is right over here. And off we go. Really quick, many of you guys are aware that about 3-4 months ago, I lost my best friend in K9X. It has been a little bit tough, obviously losing my mom in December, and then of course K9X back in May. And this little guy is K9X number 2. He is brand new. He's not even quite 3 months old. He's gonna be a big boy. You guys might see him in some other videos. I just thought I would take a second and introduce you guys to him. He is a very cantankerous and sweet boy. So I thought I would take just a quick second and be very transparent, just open and honest with you guys. And on my channel, I have always made a concerted effort to be open-minded, to be relatively positive. I don't like being really negative on every single video, as I mentioned that in my last video, right? If something looks like it's gonna be fun, looks like it's gonna be fast, I will certainly give it a try, and I will give you guys my objective opinion. And when Stellantis mentioned that they were gonna go down this Dare 2030 route, meaning that by 2030 they wanted all of their vehicles sold in Europe to be either EVs, hybrids. They wanted to go away from gas-powered vehicles really altogether. And they wanted 50% of the vehicles in the United States to kind of follow that same path, if you will. I was very sort of pessimistic, privately pessimistic about that. I thought, well, what in the world are we going to do in terms of infrastructure? I mean, how many people in this country live in apartments? I mean, I just can't see that being a great option for a lot of people, especially with the cost of the EVs being much higher than internal combustion offerings. And I just saw this thing getting really weird. And in the back of my mind, I thought, well, when American consumers actually quit buying EVs and hybrids and they just don't have the same kind of interest like they do in Europe, Stellantis will take note of that and make adjustments. And I really did kind of hope that that was going to happen. Well, it turns out that Stellantis is just going full bore down this EV kind of hybrid route. And for the hardcore enthusiasts like me and like many of you guys, that is not a good place for us to be, because there's not a whole lot for us to get excited about. As I mentioned in my last video, yes, we had the new Charger coming out. Carlos Tavares has talked at length about it, but I just put out a poll on my channel earlier today. And like 75% of you guys want nothing to do with that new car, whether it be the 6-pack car or the EV. You guys just don't like it. And of the 25% of you guys that said you did, like 23% like the 6-pack. There's almost nobody interested in the EV version of this car. One, because you guys don't like EVs, and two, is because it is not a cheap car. $80,000 for a Scat Pack is a lot of money. And so I was a little bit taken back by the fact that the folks at Stellantis want to continue to go down this route when they see that the American consumer, this is something that we do not want, and they're still just kind of forcing it down our throats. And that is a bit frustrating. And now, rather than go and give us more offerings that we can get excited about, they're talking about wanting to be more profitable from a brand perspective. They want Jeep and they want Dodge. They want everybody to be more profitable after these lackluster earnings that just came out for the first half of 2024. There's nothing to get excited about. So how in the world are you going to be profitable by not giving people kind of some offerings that they can get excited about? Now they just made a new hire. So I just found out a couple of things earlier this morning, one of which is Carlos Tavares, the CEO of Stellantis. He normally comes to town every like 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. Well, apparently it is his summer break, and he decided on his summer break that he was going to come to Detroit and sit down with everybody and talk about cost-cutting measures to make the brands more profitable. So he is literally in town right now. Apparently, one of the other things that has just happened, they have just appointed a new chief of manufacturing for North America. His name is Tim Fallon. Now, I didn't know anything about Tim, but apparently Tim actually used to be one of the head guys over at Rivian. Now, Rivian is an all-electric company. Obviously, they do trucks, they do SUVs. My understanding is that Rivian is really struggling right now. Imagine that, an EV company struggling right now in the American market. And to me, that was a huge statement because, as I mentioned, in the back of my mind, I had hoped that they would go down a different route. Maybe they hired somebody that was more into performance or more, into the racing scene. I mean, especially for somebody like, that loves the Dodge brand because it is a performance brand. Well, no, this just proves to me that they're going even more down that EV rabbit hole, if you will. And now the guy in charge of the manufacturing in the U.S. is a guy that pretty much focuses on EVs. So guys, I'm a little bit afraid that we've reached a tipping point in terms of our beloved Mopar brands, or what's left of our Mopar brands. And as I mentioned, I really do try to be optimistic and see the good in things, but man, I'm really struggling. I was really kind of hoping that we weren't going to go down just a strictly like EV hybrid, for the masses type route, and we were going to keep Dodge like the really fun, enthusiastic, tire shredding brand that it has become over the course of the last 6 decades. I am really, really worried about all these brands right now based on that fact. And I don't think Americans are really going to change a whole lot in terms of this huge demand wave is going to hit and everybody's going to want EVs all of a sudden. I think the EV market is going to continue to struggle, and the company is going to continue to have lackluster numbers moving into the 2025 model year. And what is that going to spell for the company? Truth be told, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why Tim Kuniskis, the former CEO of Dodge, resigned from his position. I mean, here we have one of the most performance-oriented CEOs I can ever remember. And to watch his legacy kind of go down this EV and hybrid rabbit hole had to have been unbelievably frustrating. I've actually talked to Tim after he left the company, and I know he's got plans. I can't really tell you a whole lot more about what he's got going on there, but I can't wait to see what happens. Now, of course, you have Matt McAleer, and he's put in a very tough position as the new CEO of Dodge, and he only has so much power as a CEO. I want to be clear on this. Obviously, when you are a CEO, you have to report to a board, you have to report to your shareholders, and of course, under the Stellantis regime, he has to report to Carlos Tavares, who, as I mentioned, I don't feel like he really understands the American consumer. So no matter how bad Matt wants to go throw a fire-breathing V8 into a new performance car, it probably is not going to happen. And that is part of why I'm feeling just really, really down about things. As I mentioned, I always try to see kind of the glass half full, if you will. And yes, I am pretty excited about the Hurricane, but so many people want to see a new V8, a revised V8 go into something else new. And there are a fair amount of people that I think would be a lot more interested in the new Charger if, in fact, it did have a V8 under the hood. It doesn't even have to be a Hemi. Obviously, my new poll kind of proves that. But this is kind of an unwinnable situation for him. And now learning about this new manufacturing person that's going to be in charge of everything in the U.S., being basically a strictly EV guy, I feel like, the writing is on the wall at this point. So here is the unfortunate reality, and I didn't necessarily want to admit to this because I'm always trying to be optimistic. I'm always trying to be open-minded about what these guys have coming, but it is becoming more and more difficult to do. I mean, every day when I get up, I'm reading another article or 2 articles or 3 articles, or I'm looking at another video where Stellantis is laying people off, or, they've got this coming down the pipe, which is bad, or they're getting sued, or they're not meeting, these guidelines. And it just feels like a million things. It's all negativity out there when it comes to Stellantis, when it comes to Dodge, in terms of, they've got too much inventory and they're pushing their vehicles back. And it's really hard to get behind the company when there's not a lot of positivity out there. And one thing I am certain of is that cars like this Demon 170, I mean, this thing is truly the baddest of the bad when it comes to muscle cars. they're just not really going to make any more muscle cars by the definition of what most people would consider to be a muscle car, meaning, you know, a big, powerful V8 car, tire shredding power. I mean, most people would not consider an EV to be a muscle car. 98% of people, based on 6 decades of lineage, would say an EV is not a muscle car. The same thing with an inline 6. While I feel like that car will be a lot of fun and have a lot of performance capability, would you really consider it a muscle car? I suppose it depends on who you ask. Some people would say maybe it's more of a muscle car than an EV, but there's just not a lot of people getting excited about the new Charger in no matter what trim you talk about. So all of that being said, it just leads me to ponder a couple of questions. What will the future be like for the former FCA brands, Dodge, Jeep, Chrysler, Ram? Well, we've already talked about Chrysler. Obviously, with them just making one thing, being a minivan, does it really make any sense to keep that brand alive unless they're going to give us a lot more to look at from a Chrysler perspective? And that is a really old brand. It would be nice to see them keep that alive. It's not looking good, at least as far as I can see. Now, for brands like Jeep and brands like Dodge, I mean, these are truly performance and enthusiast type brands. Do we really want to turn those into the Toyotas of the world? Well, maybe as far as the Stellantis folks, Carlos Tavares and team, maybe as far as they can see, it's like, hey, guess what? We'll sell a lot more vehicles if we just appeal to the masses. We give them more fuel economy, smaller engines, hybrids, EVs, all the kind of stuff that maybe the masses are a little bit more interested in, but the performance people of the world, that's not really what they want. So, I mean, could the Dodge brand be more of a Toyota type offering? You know, we're going to get the cost down, but it's all going to be about point A to point B type cars. Your enthusiasts aren't really going to get all that excited about it. Will that be the death of the brand? I mean, there's so much uncertainty out there right now. I really, really hope they don't go down that road. You know, it's one of those things like if the EV comes out and they see that it's not selling, will they give us something else to get excited about, maybe that will sell? Or will they just say, you know what, screw it, we're going to sell off Dodge to somebody else? Or all the Jeep enthusiasts out there, same kind of thing, right? I mean, these people love off-roading and having fun, and it's not your average point A to point B type consumer. Is that what they're trying to turn it into? I don't know, guys. I know there's a lot of negativity out there. I just don't want to breed all that, but I thought I would at least be honest with you guys about everything I'm seeing. Not really ideal. So let's hope maybe they surprise us. I guess we'll wait and see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. So until then, RacerX.